Parallel loops. Parallel loops are loops in which there are no constraint order between the iterations. This is a particularly important case of parallel computing because usually programs have most of their computation concentrated in loops. So if we want to know if we can execute these loops in parallel or not. Executing a loop in parallel means that the iterations are distributed over thread, task, or processes. So let's take an example. In that particular case, I'm considering this inner loop, okay, on the j dimension. And in here, I have an outer loop, but when I'm considering this loop, I'm doing that for one value of I, which is, let's assume it is equal to x. And this will be a parallel loop because when I am accessing this array in here, okay, this loop is accessing row x, and this statement in here is accessing row x minus 1. So there is no intersection between the read and write. So if you remember Bernstein's conditions, you can execute this loop in parallel. So the properties of parallel loops is that there are no loop carried dependencies in a parallel loop. Okay. And the way we can reason on inner and outer loops, if I consider an inner loop in here, I will consider that value of I equal a constant, okay, whatever it is between 0 and d, and I will just compute the dependencies in here considering j. Okay. You can note that if I equal 2, this is accessing the same row, but because between two iterations of j I'm not accessing the same column, I don't have intersections between the use of the data between iterations, so this loop is parallel. Now when I consider an outer loop, okay, this is this one, then I have to consider that all the data accessed by the inner loop have to be considered in the data dependence computation. So in here, I have to assume that all the data from 0 to d minus 1 are accessed inside one iteration. Okay. And then the question is there two values of i's? Okay, so 3x, one value of I, for which I have equality with 2 times, let's say, another value of I, y, plus 2. And if I take x equal 4, okay, y equal 5, this gives me 12, this gives me 12. Okay, so I have a dependencies, I have a loop carry dependencies between iterations of I. So therefore this loop is not parallel. So some questions indicate if this loop is parallel. Okay, and what is the condition on index array for this loop to be parallel? Some references. If you are interested in that subject, I recommend this book, and see you in class.